Lenny Bruce put it best when he said, you can't take away the right to say fuck without taking away the right to say fuck the government. Lenny Bruce was a path-breaking comedian. He was practicing his trade at a time of great cultural change, and he was someone who broke down barriers. Doing that at that time also got him into a lot of trouble.
I have a reputation for being sort of controversial and irreverent, and also the semantic bear trap of bad taste.
And the thing about Lenny Bruce is he wasn't in the mold of those sort of stand-up comics from before that told mother-in-law jokes and did impressions in the Borch Belt.
All you married men who want to get your wife nervous, when you go to bed tonight, don't talk in your sleep, just grin.
He was really someone who started engaging in personal revelation, talking about issues, talking about social conditions, and he did so in a sort of a free-form style of the time.
But you might be interested in how I became offensive. Like, started in school with drinking, and I was like a real depressed kid, and, 7 or 8 years old, and I really get juiced and get out of my...
Talking about those kinds of taboo topics, whether it was religion, sex, politics, and pushing the boundaries, is really what set him apart from comics from before, but also got him in trouble with the law.
We're going to be in attendance at your performances, Mr. Bruce. Hope that you're going to use appropriate material and not violate the obscenity laws of the state of New York.
Police would either be tipped off or they would show up and wait for him to say something that crossed the line. Some notable performances, like at the Gate of Horn in Chicago, for example, you had a wall of policemen standing at the back of the venue, and then they would, once he said something that they thought violated the law, they would then haul him off and put him in a paddy wagon. Lenny was more notable because of the fact that he got into so much trouble and because he was arrested and ultimately convicted in the state of New York.
And the Big Bust in the Big Apple, 64. Cafe A Go-Go in New York City. Frank Hogan, the Manhattan District Attorney, Mr. D.A., had had enough.
I sometimes wonder what has happened to our moral values.
Why in the last year or so has the pressure been increased against you?
It's chic to arrest me.
When he died in 1966, the conviction remained on the books.
Lenny Bruce was the last comedian in American history to be prosecuted for word crimes in a comedy club. And it's not like the Supreme Court ruled from on high. It's not like they issued a decision. His case never went there. But after Lenny paid the dues, the culture changed. And how did it all end? The foul-mouthed comedian dies penniless. He dies a convicted man.
I remember over one lunch, Ron was saying, that conviction's still out there. If only there was something that someone could do about it. Do you know anything about posthumous pardons? And, well, no, I didn't. And so I wondered about that possibility and went back after lunch and did an hour or two of research and got back in touch with Ron and said, well, it is possible. It's never been done in New York, but it's been done by several other states. It's been done once by the federal government, and so it's possible. And then he said, well, how would you like to work on a case to get a posthumous pardon for Lenny Bruce? Did a petition, filed it with Governor Pataki in New York. Actually, we didn't know what Governor Pataki's reaction would be to the pardon, and so months passed, no word, until finally I was just finishing work that year for the holidays when I get a call on my cell phone. And so being a responsible driver, I pulled to the side of the road, and it's the governor's aide saying, I just wanted to give you a heads up. In about 15 minutes, Governor Pataki is going to announce that he has granted the posthumous pardon for Lenny Bruce, and you're probably going to start getting some calls from the press. And so Governor Pataki granted the pardon, and it became the first posthumous pardon in New York history. One of my favorite lines from the New York Times coverage of the pardon, it was on the front page above the fold the day after the pardon was granted. But my favorite line from that article was the author wrote, being dead, Mr. Bruce is not expected to reap any immediate benefit from the pardon, which is literally true. With posthumous pardon, it's too late to help the person who is being pardoned. But it does several things that are, I think, very important. One is it recognizes that the state made a mistake. It made a mistake in trying to make someone a criminal for their speech, and particularly someone who is practicing sort of a unique American art form of stand-up comedy. To make that a crime is something that happens in authoritarian countries, not in the United States. So it is an apology for straying from the values on which this country was based. It corrects the historical record, and it makes a commitment for the future and for comedians and other artists to come that we're not going to make them criminals for practicing their trade in a country protected by the First Amendment. We're now coming up on the 20th anniversary of the posthumous pardon of Lenny Bruce, and I'd like to see people celebrate that by going to a comedy club. Celebrate by going and being offended.